Okay, so we are on the fourth study unit, and the topic is project management. So I'm just going to take you through the introduction. And it says that project management is very essential to software engineering, as projects should be developed within budget, time, and meeting users' needs. Several tasks to be done by project managers are also discussed in detail. Risk management is discussed in detail, and three types of risks which may be encountered during the project management. So finally, managing people, that is team members as well as individuals involved in a given project, is discussed at a greater level. So we will cover these following learning outcomes. So you should be able to demonstrate detailed knowledge of tasks of software project managers, demonstrate an understanding of the area of study risk management, and be able to analyze some risks which may arise during software projects, demonstrate an ability to analyze and evaluate various factors which influence personal motivation and the impact of personal motivation to project managers, and lastly, demonstrate an ability to analyze, apply, and evaluate key issues which can influence team working, such as team composition, organization, and communication. So, what is a project? We say that a project is a planned undertaking with a beginning and an end, which produces a unique product or service. You wouldn't be doing the project if it's not yielding a unique product or service. Why even do the project then? Because clearly you could have bought this solution from somewhere off the shelf. Okay, so those are the key things in this description. It has a clear beginning and end. It's a temporary thing, okay? And it's supposed to yield a unique or produce a unique product or service. It's constrained by time, cost, and scope, and we refer to these as the project triangle. The project manager is the person responsible for the project, okay? So what is the significance of this person who is the project manager? We say that typically a project manager would be responsible for, and it's not limited to these, but these are the common ones, and selecting team members to work with. So one of the things they're going to be doing is human resource management. Those are some of the sub-activities of project manager. So one of them is human resource management, selecting team members, communicating with stakeholders. Communication management is one of the things that a project manager will do, and also compiling reports, reporting project progress, and scheduling tasks, working within a budget. Okay, so cost management and time management as well is included. So this person is clearly very busy. So project management is it's a general discipline. You can apply it to multiple fields of study wherever you have a project. Within engineering, you can also do project management tasks. So these things that these concepts that we're talking about today are applicable to most of these industries. When it comes to software as well, we use similar approaches and similar tools and techniques, okay? And it says that project management is needed because software development is always subject to budget and schedule constraints that are set by the organization developing the software. If you just woke up and decided to start developing or working on the project without having proper project management concepts in place, then it's going to be very difficult for you to be compliant in terms of budget and schedule. So it is concerned with activities involved in ensuring that software is delivered on time and on schedule and in accordance with the requirements of the organizations developing and procuring the software. Okay, so you want to be using your resources effectively, and by doing so, it involves you doing a reflection on what's priority in the project, managing your scope, managing your time, scheduling tasks, and all of that stuff. So in management, the task of management, it's in simple terms, we say management is getting things done through people. Okay, and one of the activities of this project manager will be people management. So project managers have to choose people for their team and establish ways of working that leads to effective team performance. Choose the right people to work with and find a way of keeping the people working and motivated and all on the same page, okay? And the other management task that the project manager will be doing is writing proposals. Whenever you are given a contract to work on a project, one of the first things that you're going to be asked to do by the client is to draft a proposal, and the proposal basically outlines how you plan to carry out the work. But also the proposal forms the basis of the contract, okay? Because you are promising them X, Y, Z, okay? You are saying this is how we can achieve this particular task, and this is how we are going to do it. So that is done by the project manager as well. And some of the other project management activities include project planning. So project managers are responsible for planning, estimating, and scheduling project development and assigning people tasks. There are specific tools that you may have heard of or may have not heard of them, but a work breakdown structure is one of them. And we also have a Gantt chart. And with these tools, you take you break the project into smaller mini projects, and you assign each one to a person or a team, and you assign estimated time to complete and so forth. If you've done project management, you may be familiar with also the PERT chart. So all of those are scheduling tasks, and the project manager must be able to do or must be able to work with those kind of tools. That's the only way in which they can keep track of the tasks in the project. And in terms of reporting, project managers are usually responsible for reporting on the progress of a project to customers and to the managers of the company developing the software. That one we already mentioned. They need to facilitate the communication, and reporting means in the form of a report, not a verbal report, and not screenshotting pieces of code, because the people that you are reporting to don't know anything about the code. So they want detailed summary, or whatever, a report, something they can see that is a visual, okay, that makes sense to them. And then also risk management. So project managers assesses the risks that may affect a project, monitor these risks, and take action when problems arise. There's always going to be problems. Some of them you can predict those problems, some of them you can't. And risk is not always a bad thing. There could be positive risk. But in terms of project management, you tend to plan for the negative risks, okay? What happens if we are faced with this scenario? How do we act? What is the impact of that scenario on our particular project triangle factors? So risk management is concerned with identifying risks and drawing up plans to minimize their effect on a project. A risk is probably that some adverse circumstance will occur. And we categorize risk into these three main categories. So we have the risk to the project, which is something that affects either the time taken to develop the software or the resources, okay? Anything that's a threat to the schedule or the resources, we categorize as a project risk. Then we also have product risks. Anything that compromises quality and performance of a software, then we categorize it as product risk. And then business risks affects the organization developing or procuring the software. So anything that's a change in the environment, be it internally or externally, that will cause the company to restructure. Okay, we look at it as a business risk. And in the following slide, you will see examples of some of these. So we have staff turnover. Experienced staff will leave the project before it is finished. That is definitely a project risk, okay? Because it is, you can always replace the person, but how long will that take? So we can agree that that is going to compromise on the schedule, okay? Because you're losing a human resource. So that is categorized as a project risk. Management change. There will be a change of organization management with different priorities. So that is also a project risk, because we're looking at something that management change is not something that happens overnight, okay? And as people adjust into these different positions, there's going to be delays and the project will be affected some way or the other. Hardware unavailability. What if the vendor that you plan on buying a particular hardware from is out of stock, okay? The supplier doesn't have stock, so what do? You have to wait. You don't have a choice because you really need this hardware. So hardware that is essential for the project will not be delivered on schedule, as it says. That means it'll compromise on the schedule, okay? And then that is regarded as a project risk. Now, the next three are categorized as both project and product risk. And this is why. So requirements change. There will be a larger number of changes to the requirements than anticipated. Okay, so we can agree that when you change requirements, you're increasing the scope. And when you're increasing the scope according to the project triangle, time will also be affected. So you can imagine requirements change is definitely something that is a project risk. And in terms of, they say the more you make changes to the requirement, the more the system loses its structure. Although Agile is good, it was invented for that, but the more iterations you do, the more you can degrade. It doesn't always happen, but you run the risk of degrading the system, okay? Because you're chopping and changing. So that is also part of a product, because you're compromising the quality of the product that you deliver at the end, okay? And then you also have specification delays. Maybe there's a person who's a stakeholder in this project, and maybe they fall ill, and we either wait for them, but we can no longer wait. It's too much of a risk on the project, so we have to continue. So we just sort of assume what kind of specifications that person is going to provide us, and we continue with the project. So specification delays, project and product risk, it can compromise the quality, of course, because then you can't fully predict what kind of critical information that person was going to give you, especially if they work at a mission critical department. Okay, and then also size underestimates. Okay, so you underestimated the size of the system that needs to be developed. That is a project risk, because since you underestimated it, now you need to review it, okay? Which means that also you underestimated the scope, essentially, which means now you're back to reality, and you also have to work with realistic timelines. So the schedule will also change. And your underestimation of the project also compromises on the product, okay? Because what is the validity of what you delivered, okay? If it's not in line, or it's not a true representation of what the customer had in mind, okay? So that it's definitely quality or performance. And also we have case tool underperformance. That one is just aligned to the product risk. CASE is the tools we use to design software, computer-aided systems engineering. And if they cannot cater for the particular solution that you're going to deliver, if you get a very poor case tool, then it means obviously the quality of the software you're going to produce is going to be impacted. And the last two, which we said business risks, or all the risks that change the environment, whether it can either be internally or externally. Something like technology change comes from externally, okay, from outside the organization. And the underlying technology on which the system is built is superseded by new technology. So you need to adjust accordingly, okay, so that you remain competitive. And product competition, a competitive product is marketed before the system is completed, okay? So it sort of puts pressure on the organization to pump more money into this project so that they also deliver their system into the market, to get into the market as soon as possible, because obviously they're going to be behind in terms of their competitors. So these are the examples of each of these project, product versus business risks. The risk management process involves you identifying what kind of risks could occur, and you obviously assign them you do a risk analysis, and then maybe you prioritize them to say, these we can give them a 1, maybe a scale out of 10. You say these are 1, these are 5, these are a 9, okay? So it's 1 to 10, rating them based on how critical they are, or how much of an impact they have on the project. So after you've done your analysis, then you need to develop a strategy. What are the contingency plans? If our senior developer falls sick, that's the risk you identified, okay? And you gave it a priority at 9 because it has a great impact on our project. So what are you doing? What plan do you have in place? What strategy do you have to avoid that from happening? Okay, you can't avoid it from happening, but you need something in place as a contingency rather. And your risk assessment involves you putting a qualitative measure and a quantitative measure of the risk. So the qualitative, it's there in words, it's simple terms to say, if this happens, then obviously it delays the project by X amount of days. And then the quantitative measure would be you saying, this is how much it is going to cost us. Okay, so the quantitative measure, we're looking at the numbers, putting a number to it, a cost to it, and so forth. So this is the typical risk management process that you follow. And managing people. People are an organization's most important asset. And the tasks of a manager are essentially people-orientated, unless there's some understanding of people. Management will be unsuccessful, and poor people management is an important contributor to project failure. Working with people is not easy. People are different. People have different personalities. So that's one of the challenges of being a manager, okay? They say getting things done through people, but it's not always as straightforward as you think it is. And having that synchronization amongst the team is not a simple task. And that's some of the reasons, or it's one of the biggest contributors to project failure, okay? The failure to manage your people resources. So motivating people. An important role of a manager is to motivate the people working on a project. Motivation means organizing the work and the working environment to encourage people to work effectively. If people are not motivated, they will not be interested in the work they are doing. They will work slowly, be more likely to make mistakes, and will not contribute to the broader goals of the team or the organization. It's very difficult to be a project manager because to some extent, you have to be a jack of all trades. And what I mean by that is motivating people is not something IT related. It's obviously because it's a management duty, it's going to be there under project management. It's something that you're most likely to find in a business management textbook and especially in the HR okay, in the HR textbook, because all of these are HR tasks. So what is the role of the project manager? Well, the project manager is supposed to, at least if they're not going to be dealing with these issues directly that affect the project team members, then they have to some extent, motivate. So the person is a project manager. If the issues around salary and pay, then the project manager does not work with salaries, but they may sort of make it happen through the HR team, because the person who's the project manager is a representative of the people working on the project. Okay, so as much as they can say this is not in their domain, they don't need to understand it. They actually do need to understand it, that there's something that they can do, and if people are not motivated in your project, then what do they do? Okay, and these are some of the tools, or one of the tools. Okay, you only need to know one of them. There are other ones as well, but you don't have to worry too much about them. This is not HR. So we have Maslow's needs hierarchy, and this guy developed this framework. He said that in order to keep people working or motivated, these particular needs must be met. So it goes from your basic needs to your psychological needs to your personal self-fulfillment needs. Okay, so you can't expect someone, for example, let's take the foundation. Okay, the basic need. You can't expect somebody to be motivated to work on a piece of software if they don't have food, they don't have water, they don't have warmth, and they haven't got enough rest. Although for developers, there's no such thing as enough rest. But you understand that the basic needs must be satisfied. Okay? So those are some of the challenges that you're going to be faced with as a project manager. And then also, how can you expect somebody to give you quality output if they don't have security, if they don't have safety, if they don't have shelter? Okay. Then if you move a level higher, belongingness and love needs. Okay. In terms of relationships, friends, psychological things, the impact, if you look at the impact of a person's mental health to their ability to function or to focus on a particular project. So you're expecting them to produce results, but at the end of the day, in terms of psychological needs, they're not okay. Okay, so these are some of the things you also need to consider. Prestige and feeling accomplished. Everybody has their own personal goals, and we can agree that you won't really pay a lot of focus into something that's not yours as opposed to something that's yours. So to some extent, if you go a level higher, the person will be definitely more motivated if they feel that their own personal things have met. I mean, you are working and you are studying as well, okay? And if you're doing that, at the end of the day, as much as you are at work, you're also thinking about your own personal things, your own personal studies. That's why you make time to attend your virtual classes and so forth, because you still have your own personal goals. Okay, and we can imagine if maybe something is not going right with your studies, with your personal goals, the level of motivation when you're actually working on your job. Okay, so all of these have a big impact, and then obviously the highest level is when a person is feeling accomplished. We've seen this, the people that have made it in life, the people that are billionaires, they have that feeling of self-actualization. This is my purpose in life. You know, they own all of these big things. That's the highest level of motivation you can get. So that's how Maslow's hierarchy of needs works, and it's just a guideline. Okay, it doesn't mean that when you're working on a project team, you have to get people private jets before they work. That's not what it says, but you got to understand. And if you look at it yourself, you can say, this thing flows from things that are actually needs to things that are actually wants, okay? And then teamwork. Most software engineering is a group activity. The development schedule for most non-trivial software projects is such that they cannot be completed by one person working alone. So if you do not like working with people, you need to get used to it if you're working on a software, because some of the things you cannot do alone. And there are all of these different approaches, especially in the agile philosophy, such as extreme programming and pair programming. You need to get used to working in teams and working with people. A good group is a cohesive and has a team spirit. The people involved are motivated by the success of the group, as well as by their own personal goals. Okay, and this is tying back to Maslow. So people are motivated as a team, but also people are motivated by their own personal goals. Group interaction is the key determinant of group performance. Flexibility in group composition is limited. Managers must do the best they can with the available people. Okay, so we know how it works. You're in a group, we're part of a team. Certain people can fall sick now and then, and someone else has to step in. So you work as a manager. You work with what you have available in front of you. So to achieve this group cohesiveness, in a cohesive group, members consider the group to be more important than any individual in it. Okay, and is part of, if you're working as part of a group, you must not put your personal goals first. It's not about you. It's about the ultimate goal that you're trying to achieve. And group quality standards can be developed by group members. Team members learn from each other and get to know each other's work. Inhibitions caused by ignorance are reduced. So because you're working on a group project, when somebody starts to slack, you can just sort of update them, okay? And so it's not an excuse that I didn't know X, Y, Z. No, you could have always asked somebody as part of your team, okay? And that forms part of a cohesive group, because there needs to be constant discussions about things. People must be on the same page always. Knowledge is shared. Continuity can be maintained if a group member leaves, okay? There is knowledge there, there's experienced people. If one person has to be replaced in the project, then the rest of the project team can sort of brief the person or keep them up to date. And also there is refactoring or continuous improvement, which is encouraged. Group members work collectively to deliver high quality results and fix problems irrespective of the individuals who originally created the design or the program. Okay, so it doesn't matter who wrote the original code, but we're all about continuous improvement, looking at the code again and see how we can do it better. And then lastly, selecting the proper group members. So a manager or team leader's job is to create a cohesive group and organize their group so that they can work together effectively. This involves creating a group with the right balance of technical skills and personalities. And I think that aspect of personality is a big deal. It's not good enough that the person, is technically skilled, but how are they when they're working with people? You don't want to have in your team someone who's always moody and someone who's always shouting at other people. It's good if you know that they have that kind of personality, because then you wouldn't want them part of your team. But it's not always the case. You don't know people's personalities up until you in the project with them, and that's when your management capabilities are tested to the limits. Nobody said it was going to be easy. And so strike a balance between technical skills and personalities, and organizing that group so that the members work together effectively. So in conclusion, a project must be developed within budgets, within the scheduled time, and it should meet the user's requirements. Risk management is a crucial activity which needs to be closely monitored by the project manager. There are several stages involved in the risk management process, which is said was namely risk identification, risk analysis, risk planning, and risk monitoring. Okay, so that is study unit 4. It's basically all of this is project management tasks or concepts, but you need to understand them as a software engineer in case one day you are assigned as the project manager for a project. Okay, so are there any questions relating to this study unit?